In the heart of foggy London, there lived a girl who was different. Unlike other children, she didn't dream of grand adventures or distant lands. She dreamed of stories, not just any stories, but those whispered in the dead of night. Tales that made your skin crawl. And her favorite, the legends of the Whispering Shadows, Greystone. It was an old village nestled in a valley shrouded in mist. The villagers lived quiet lives, staying indoors when the fog rolled in, refusing to talk to outsiders. Many believed that if you stayed in the village too long, the fog would cling to you, wrapping around your soul. And at the edge of this haunting village sat an abandoned mansion. The old woman continued her tale, keeping an eye on the wide-eyed boy sitting at her feet.
They called it the Blackthorn Mansion, and many were curious about it, but none dared go near it.
They say that on foggy nights, the house whispers secrets from beyond the grave, secrets that drive men mad. For a century, it stood empty, its windows like hollow eyes, staring into the souls of those who passed by. But some say the spirits within are not at rest. Some say they can still be heard echoing in the wind. Those who listen closely may catch whispers of the past, stories of betrayal and despair. And if you hear your name spoken in that mournful chorus, it means the spirits have chosen you to bear their burden, to become the vessel for their untold stories. The old woman paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. And that is why we tell these stories, to remind ourselves that even in the darkest hours, the bravest souls find a way to shine light into the abyss. Eleanor Ward had heard the legends since childhood. Born in London, she had grown up with only vague stories about her family's origins. Her grandmother, before her death, had spoken once of the house where it all began, but never explained more. After years of studying history at the university, Eleanor felt drawn to Greystone not just by curiosity, but by an aching pull she couldn't explain. When she first stepped off the carriage, Eleanor noticed the way people looked at her. With suspicion, as though they already knew she did not belong. She rented a small cottage from an old widow named Mrs. Harrow. "You'll want to keep away from the Blackthorn grounds," Mrs. Harrow warned the very first evening, as she handed Eleanor a brass key. "That house, it eats the brave, and it tempts the foolish." But Eleanor wasn't foolish, or so she told herself. Each day, she immersed herself in the town's archives, poring over fragile papers that crumbled at her touch. She discovered the name Isabella Wardher, great-grandmother listed as the last recorded inhabitant of Blackthorn Mansion. Nothing more was written. No death
Certificate, no obituary, no inheritance papers.
It was as though Isabella had been erased. In the library, Eleanor befriended a man named Thomas Gray, the town's young librarian. He was quiet, with sharp eyes that seemed to notice more than he admitted. At first, he offered little help, but as Eleanor returned, day after day, he saw—
"You're digging into dangerous ground," he said one evening, sliding a dusty journal across the table toward her.
This belonged to Jonathan Halley. He was close to Isabella. Very close. The journal was filled with obsessive notes, ramblings of a man driven by jealousy. He wrote of Isabella's beauty, of her love for another manna-painter named Elias Crowend, of how he would ensure she belonged to him alone, no matter the cost. When Eleanor looked up, Thomas's expression was grim. Some in town believe Jonathan killed Elias. Others say Elias simply vanished. But Isabella disappeared soon after. The whispers began the very same year. The mansion beckons. Eleanor could no longer resist the mansion's pull. One moonlit night, lantern in hand, she walked through the rusted gates. Her footsteps echoed against broken statues. An owl hooted, then silence swallowed the sound. Inside, the air was heavy, thick with age. Portraits lined the hall, their faces pale and cracked. She swore one of them. The portrait of Isabella shifted its gaze as she passed. The whispers began faintly, like sighs, but soon they surrounded her. Words rose and fell in languages she almost understood. Isabella, Elias, betrayed, hidden. In the study, Eleanor discovered the letters, the ones Isabella had written but never sent. They spoke of her love for Elias, her fear of Jonathan, and her intention to escape. But there was no record of her ever leaving. The shadow appeared then, tall, indistinct, its ember-like eyes glowing. "Why disturb the silence?" it asked. Eleanor, though terrified, stood firm. "I want the truth." The figure extended a hand of smoke and pointed to the fireplace. There, Eleanor found the small wooden box and the locket inside. The vision, the moment she touched the locket, her mind drowned in visions. She saw Isabella standing in the garden, holding Ilyas's hand beneath the roses. She heard their whispered promises to run away together. Then came Jonathan, his fury, his threats. The memory shifted to a stormy night, Isabella weeping in the study, Jonathan's voice booming, Elias shouting, a struggle, a scream. Blood staining the marble floor. The vision ended with Isabella hiding the locket in the fireplace, whispering, "One day, the truth will be found. My blood will free me."
Eleanor collapsed to her knees, gasping. Tears streamed down her face.
She finally understood, the mansion whispered.
Not to frighten, but to beg someone to remember.
Determined, Eleanor carried the locket to Thomas. But when she showed him, his face grew pale. "You don't understand," he whispered. "Jonathan Hawley was my ancestor. The Hawley family has always kept the secret. To protect our name." Eleanor stared at him, shocked. "So, you knew?" "I suspected," Thomas admitted. "But the truth was buried for a reason. If the town learns, the Hales will be destroyed." "The truth must be spoken," Eleanor said, repeating the shadow's words. That night, she dreamt of Isabella again. This time, Isabella's spirit herself appeared, dressed in a flowing gown, eyes filled with sorrow. "Set me free," she pleaded. "Tell them what happened." At dawn, Eleanor went to the town square. The market buzzed with chatter until she raised her voice. With trembling hands, she held the locket high and read aloud from Isabella's letters. She told the story of Elias, of Jonathan's jealousy, of Isabella's despair. At first, the crowd murmured angrily, unwilling to believe. But when Thomas himself stepped forward, head bowed, shame heavy in his eyes, and confirmed the truth, silence fell. For the first time in a century, Isabella's story was spoken. The whispers in the mansion ceased that night. The townsfolk reported peaceful silence where once voices had cried out. Epilogue: Eleanor remained in Greystone for several months, helping restore the mansion into a memorial. She wrote a book about Isabella's life, ensuring her great-grandmother's name was no longer erased. On her last night in town, Eleanor returned to the mansion garden. The moonlight bathed the roses in silver. A soft wind blew, and for a moment, she thought she heard a whisper again, but not of sorrow. This time, it said only one word: "Thank you."